Happy Sunday. Oh, how was everybody? Nice to be on here. Um, I was doing this. Okay, hold on. Oh, the stream quality is lowered. How can that be? We're plugged into with this computer, with this MacBook. We're plugged in directly into the modem. So I'm always surprised when it says stream quality down a little bit. I'm going, but I'm plugged into the modem. I have the best package on earth. We've got an update for you on Phil Ehart. You know, Rich Williams and Phil Ehart, drummer Phil, uh, um, uh, um, and Rich Williams is the guitarist, the guy with the patch. I hate to put it that way. We had Rich on a little while ago. He's a guitarist. Anyway, these are the only two guys who have ever performed on every single Kansas album. You know that? Little piece of trivia for you. Kansas, like a lot of bands who are still around, has changed an awful lot. There's a lot of personnel changes where every time I talk to people in a band, and I try to talk to the original members of the band whenever I can. I've never had an interview with Phil. Phil, if you're watching, even if on the rebroadcast, still want to have you on the show. Phil Ehart is one of those drummers that really influenced me. I remember I was not one of those people. We'll get to the clip in a second. I'm just waiting for some people to come on. I was not one of those people who knew Kansas before Left Overture. I'd heard of them, um, grumblings, but then I heard Left Overture and everything changed. And then Point of No Return and Monolith, and I bought all those albums. The live album was amazing, and continued to buy their albums. And because of getting interviews with Tom Brislin, the keyboard player who worked with Yes and John Anderson, we started listening to their newer albums. And I was thinking, still sounds like Kansas. It still does. There's certain bands, it's interesting, there are certain bands that I'm more forgiving of where there's not a lot of original members left. For whatever reason, I don't know what it is, where I don't apply the same rules to certain bands. Not sure why that is. Anyway, Ronnie Platt, we just interviewed a few days ago. And usually the turnaround for our interviews can be up to 5 months, sometimes 6 months. Now and then it's 2 years where I don't know if I can do something with the interview. Sometimes I'll interview someone and it's a great interview, but I'm going, no one's going to watch this interview. And no disrespect to the person, but I have to find an angle where I can put this up so people will watch it. I'm going, I need people to watch this channel. And if I put up an interview with someone who is not going to get an audience for us, we're going, it hurts our channel. But usually, I don't think we've had a turnaround this quick ever. I don't know. So Ronnie Platt is going to give us an update on how Phil Ehart is doing. I'll get to your comments in a second. First, a little intro. Let's. That is the highest quality logo that I've got. It's like, realistically, it's huge, brought down. That's why when you saw it, it looks so good. Someone was mentioning the other day, how come you don't wear your glasses all the time? Well, I'm nearsighted. So I don't need my glasses usually I have to wear my glasses to drive. And I remember the other day someone was going, huh? Are you John Bowden? Yeah, I've never seen you with glasses on. Well, I wear my glasses all the time. Alex Knight, such a great band, still sounds great live. Alex is one of our biggest supporters. Alex, you're like a bro to me. You really, really are. And I always appreciate you getting on here. So Ronnie Platt talked to us for a little over an hour, and he's the current lead singer. He's been the lead singer of Kansas since 2014. And Steve Walsh, who was the original lead singer of Kansas, was a big influence on him. And we're going to talk about how Phil Ehart, their drummer, remember, Rich Williams, Phil Ehart, they're still in Kansas, even though Phil might not come back as a drummer. Who knows? But he had a heart attack not that long ago, just a few weeks ago. Here's the update with one of the nicest guys I've ever interviewed in my freaking life, Ronnie Platt. How's Phil doing?
Fantastic. Just talked to him 2 days ago, and this is absolutely crazy. So he has a heart attack on a Tuesday. Wednesday morning, I get a call from JR, our road manager, And he calls me, Ronnie, what are you doing? I'm just sitting here having a cup of coffee. And he's like, okay, I'm going to put Rich on the phone. I'm like, uh-oh, three-way call. This isn't good. And they told me that Phil had a heart attack. And it's like, oh my God, my heart sank and just, it was just, it took my breath away. So this was Wednesday morning. Thursday afternoon, late Thursday afternoon, Phil calls me and he's at home. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm just sitting at home. Thought I'd give you a buzz. I'm like, how are you feeling? He's like, oh, I feel great. What? You were just in the hospital 2 days ago with a heart attack. Yeah, I put in a couple of stints, felt great. Friday, he calls me, John, this is crazy. Friday afternoon, he calls me, hi, Phil, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just playing the drums. What? What? Really? 3 days after a heart attack, you're sitting at your drum set. So, but oh, I'm just tippy tapping on the electric set. I'm not going wild or anything, and just wanted to make sure because I guess they went in through his wrist, you know, to, with whatever they do, the
Yeah.
procedure. He wanted to make sure his wrist was okay. But I just talked to him 2 days ago, doing fantastic, energy in his voice, 100% recovery. Just has to take it easy for a while, let things settle in. And he's telling me I'm dying to get back out. So it's only a matter of time.
Come on. Can't keep a good drummer down. Phil's is an amazing, he's an interesting character. A lot of my friends have interviewed him, and I'd love to get him on the channel. Phil, if you're watching, love to get you on. You got a little extra time. Mind you, he doesn't have a little extra time. He's also managing the band. And like I said, he and Rich Williams, who we've had on this channel, are the only two remaining members of the classic lineup of Kansas. But they've been the only two members who have been on every single album from Kansas. Thanks, Alex. Amazing medical treatment. I know. Well, you're in the medical field, right, Alex? It's amazing what they can do now. So we have a few more clips from Ronnie Platt, who, like I mentioned, has been the lead singer of Kansas since 2014. And you ever notice something about him? You notice something about Ronnie Platt? Doesn't he sound like a type of guy you'd want to sit down and have coffee with? Just not pretentious, not patronizing. Not that we've had a lot of that on this channel. We haven't had a lot of that on this channel, but just a nice guy. Shannon, my wife, who most of you know because she comes on with me, she's been very busy lately. She edits all our videos now. Chase doesn't have time. Chase is in his own band. Chase is very busy. He's playing with other people now. He's an adult, so he can play with adults because when Chase was a kid drummer, he couldn't get into the bars, right? A lot of people wanted Chase to play for them, but he couldn't. So now he's 20 and he can play. He's too busy. Shannon's doing all the interviews. I say this because Shannon runs upstairs and she says, this Ronnie Platt guy what a nice man. Can we meet him? And I said, well, Kansas they're not coming here. We're in Calgary in Canada and they're not coming here, but we may make a trip to go see them. And Tom Brislin's been on the show. Their keyboardist. Tom's just one of the nicest guys too. And Rich Williams, who's been on all the albums. Rich is a real character, recovering alcoholic, and likes to speak about it. Here's a clip with Ronnie Platt, remember, the lead singer since 2014. And by the way, before the last clip, you notice that he's telling me an update on Phil Ehart, and I'm like juggling something. My whole drink completely fell down over here, like all over the floor, all over the walls, but it was ice water, so it was okay. Here is a guy who, he was also in Shooting Star, a band that never, ever got their due. 2007 to 2011. We're going to talk about Shooting Star in a second. Just a band that I thought was really, really good, but a lot of people don't know who they are. Ronnie was in a lot of bands, as I mentioned, and I think a lot of people weren't surprised that he ended up being the lead singer of Kansas. Obviously, with what you've said, I don't think anybody's surprised that a lot of people you grew up with, if you run into them, they're probably not surprised that you're the lead singer of Kansas. I mean, you were the singer guy.
I worked at, I started, I think, when I was 14, 15 years old. I started at a restaurant in Hillside, Illinois called Q's Pizza. And, started as a busboy, but uh, they had me making pizzas and cooking in the back pretty soon. And it's funny, I've gotten messages from all the people that I used to work with there. They're like, we knew you were going to make it into a big band.
Ah,
You were always in a band, uh, we always enjoyed listening to you sing and stuff. So it was pretty neat to hear back from those people. I mean, when I was, you know, good Lord, I mean, 15, 16, 17 years old, so someone had some foresight back then.
I didn't cut him off. That's how the clip ends. We're going to talk about some of the, and you've heard me say this to a lot, ask this to a lot of performers that I interview, that what was in your record collection when you left home? Ronnie's got Ronnie loves the people you love. These are all the bands that you're not going to be surprised with. When you left home, Mom and Dad, I'm leaving. I'm taking my pots and pans. I'm out of here. What was in your record collection then?
Ooh, well, I left home pretty early. I think I was like 19 or 20 in there. I had a lot of Rush. I had a lot of Kansas. I mean, if you were to look at my album collection back then, I mean, the stack of Kansas would be that big. The stack of Rush would be that big. Genesis would be that big. Again, the prog rock stuff. Huge Yes, my band Drama that was together from 87 to 90. We played 95% Yes music. So uh, big Yes fan. But also a lot of Journey, a lot of Foreigner, you know, uh, I, Boston, Boston's first two albums, only two. But God, I thought Brad Delp's voice was angelic, just simply angelic. And those were the albums that I had back then.
Sometimes I forget to press the buttons. Huh? What a nice guy. We're going to talk about joining Kansas now. And in the next few days, because these are all clipped up now, we're going to come on and probably present you with some live things. I like going on live. They do a lot better on the weekday, obviously, and I can understand that. And it's Sunday, and it was 3:30 or 4:30 our time when we came on, which is not the ideal time. But I wanted to put something up today. This is all about him and uh, getting in the band. Is it Rich who facilitated, or you called Rich to say, "Hey, I'd like to be considered"? Tell me that story. I know you've told it a million times, but I don't own those other clips.
Right. Talk about classic rock bands. Longtime friend and fan of mine, Dina, texted me one day and said, "Did you see this?" And she knew that I was just a die hard, drag out, die hard Kansas fan. And she sent me, this is Steve Walsh's press release of his retirement, Kansas announcing the retirement of Steve Walsh. And Dina happens to be Dennis DeYoung's niece, formerly of Styx. Uh,
Chicago.
yeah, the Chicago connection here. But just on a whim, I, I just I messaged Rich Williams because we were friends on Facebook. He accepted my friend request because he saw me sing with Shooting Star. I was the lead singer of Shooting Star from 2007 to 2011. And I messaged him on a Wednesday. Thursday, I came home from work, checked my messages. There's a message from Rich Williams. Ronnie, we're about to go on stage in Houston. If you get this within the next hour and a half, give me a call. Oh my God. Call Rich. We have a real nice conversation. He's like, "Can Phil call you tomorrow? We're about to go on stage. Can we talk to you tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." I talked to Phil on Friday. He asked me if I could fly to Atlanta because I'm just outside of Chicago. can you fly to Atlanta on Monday and meet with Rich and I? And I'm like, absolutely. So met with them in Atlanta, flew right back home after a 3-4 hour meeting, was at work the very next day, checked my email from Phil Ehart. Congratulations, you got the job. The band is pumped. Let's get to work. And it's been a million miles an hour ever since. It
What was the
really is.
first sit down with the band? What was that like?
Uh, Walked into the rehearsal studio. I mean, it was right to work, and maybe my apprehension of, you know, oh, holy good God, I'm the lead singer of Kansas. I'm walking into my first Kansas rehearsal. I talked to David Ragsdale before. I met him before, but met Billy there, and no kidding, it was about a whopping 2 minutes before I felt like I was just, you know, rehearsing with a bunch of buddies. It was that comfortable, that fast.
But
And
let me interrupt you. Isn't that part of just doing the work? I always say I say this in every interview. You do the work, you get in the room, and there's muscle memory, and you know what you're doing. And by
uh,
then you've been a singer, like a lead singer for so many years. Like that is who you, part of who you really are.
right, and that's, I really feel I had a good running start because my cover band Ara, we opened up for everyone. Uh, uh Huge national acts, 38 Special, Paul Rogers. We opened up for Survivor, God knows how many times. So I really had a good running start. The guy that I can't fathom is Tommy DiCarlo, who now sings for Boston, who went from Home Depot to fronting Boston and never really was in a band. Oh my God, that scares me to death. I had a really good running start, and of course, being a huge Kansas fan, really gave me a huge advantage.
A lot of folks watching that will say that, well, couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. And he's done the work. And if you've heard him sing with Kansas, man, this guy's amazing. But Shooting Stars, another band we touched on a while ago. This is our last clip for today. And then I'm going to go have my supper. And they were waiting for me downstairs. The in-laws are here. And I said, no, don't wait for me. Just Shannon, fix me a plate. It's all good. I just want to get this on here. Shooting Star, which had been around forever. Van McLean on vocals and guitar, Steve Thomas drums, Ron Verlin on bass, and he had a chance to play with these three guys who were in the original band. And we're going to mention them in this interview clip. But the fact that he played with this band that, well, take a listen. You worked with Van, Steve, and Ron from Shooting Star.
Yeah.
They're one of those bands that fell through the cracks. The people who were fans paid close attention. They, like anybody else, had a lot of personnel changes. What was your experience like with them?
The one thing that was disappointing is we didn't do nearly as many shows as I would have loved to have done with Shooting Star. And it's like we would we would do a good run of 6, 7, 8 shows, and then not go out for 2 months. Do 5, 6, 7 shows, not go out for 3 months. It was disappointing
Was it
because I
because was Van sick while you were with them?
no, Van was in good health when I was with them. It, it's a hard thing to explain. It's like we would shoot out of the starting blocks, and then just do a mild pace, and it was really up and down. Uh, and really disappointing because I loved that music. I remember getting the album "Hang On for Your Life," and I played that to death.
Great band.
Yeah, great band. Gary West had that unique voice. Really was the characterization of that band. Uh, Nothing to take away from Keith Mitchell. When Keith Mitchell joined the band, they started go changing their genre a little bit. They started going almost kind of hair metal when Keith joined the band. So it was a departure from that original shooting star type of music, but all of it was just great songwriting. You know, Van and Gary were great songwriters, and I wish we would have done 100 shows a year.
It's Ronnie Platt, the lead singer of Kansas from 2014 to present. And they're currently on tour. He was in a hotel room. I know he was holding whatever he was using to do the interview, whether that was an iPad or his phone. And he was holding it. It was shaking a little bit. But usually I'll tell the person, can you put it someplace? Can you? And for whatever reason, with Ronnie, it just didn't matter. I just kept going, nah, just keep it flowing. It's great. One of the nicest human beings I've ever interviewed. And, you know, some people sometimes talk about lead singer disease, where the lead singer, it gets to them a little bit. I was interviewing, but he's not like that, but I was interviewing Dan and Bill Kramer yesterday. You may not know who they are. Dan and Bill Kramer are in a band called The Bugs. And this is related. Dan and Bill were a local phenom in Edmonton when I was playing new age music in the 80s, when the wave format came out, the NAC format, New Adult Contemporary, before it turned to smooth jazz and kind of lost its magic. But I was talking to them, and I hadn't talked to Dan in years. Bill, I keep in contact with, they're fraternal twins. And I had to tell them, I said, you know what? When I was doing that show in Edmonton, it was the first real fame that I had as an announcer, even though it's local phenom stuff. I was telling him, I said, you know, it kind of got to my head a little bit. Because I read my journal from back then. I'm going, you got a little big headed back then. And then, of course, you cut yourself down to, you know, you realize that this is just a radio show. It's no freaking big deal. But now and then I'll run into announcers. You can tell they've got the fever a little bit too much, or a YouTuber, or sometimes a member of a band. I've talked to a few people who were really arrogant. And talking to Ronnie Platt, you go, wow, this guy hasn't forgotten where he's from. I know that's a mother statement to say that, but he really hasn't. He's just a good guy. And if you've just joined us, Phil Ehart is all right. He had a stint. They put it in through his arm, and he's feeling good. And he had called Ronnie Platt a couple of days after, and he was drumming again on his electronic kit just to keep it going. He just felt like drumming. And Phil, if you're listening, if you get a chance to watch this, we'd love to have you on. I'm actually going to reach out to them and say, hey, you know, if he's got some time, be nice to talk about the old Kansas stuff going way back. And he's the guy to talk to, right? Yeah. Because he's still in the band. Kerry, I'd love to talk to him. Steve Walsh, love to talk to him. But Steve's not doing a lot of interviews these days. So there you go. Thanks, guys, for coming on, indulging me a little bit. Phil Ehart is going to be okay. He's on the mend, and he wants to rejoin the band. He manages the band. Would like to get back on the horse, so to speak. So good for him. And good for Ronnie Platt for in his hotel room in the middle of a tour as a lead singer. Sometimes the singers don't want to get on and talk because they want to protect their voice. And I didn't want to keep them longer than an hour. We went a little over an hour. So Shannon put this all together. And there you go. I'm going to read some of your comments. Relvin, Tom was very controlling, he says, when you met him. Tom Scholes of Boston. What people ate when they're literally made every decision, every around. Okay, it's just my perspective. Okay, from Tom Scholes. I'd like to get Tom on the I'd like to get Tom Scholes on the program. We've had Barry Goudreau. We've had the original drummer before Sib Hashin joined, Jim Mastia. But Tom Scholes would be the guy because he's the guy, right? He's the man. And Brad Delp is no longer with us. We have a lot of clips about Ronnie Platt talking about Brad Delp. And we'll present that to you probably tomorrow or the next day. Excuse me, my stomach's growling. Anyway, thank you for everyone who joined us today. We really, really appreciate it. If you ever want to make a donation to the channel, and lately many have, which is great because we're always in need of new equipment. So whenever someone makes a donation for the channel, we'll buy a 4K camera, we'll buy another microphone or a better microphone or better lighting. I could use better lighting today. You can see my little rings in my glasses from the 2 rings that I have here. So there's a link in the description if you ever want to make a PayPal donation. You can join our Patreon. You can get early access to almost all our interviews, and subscribe to the channel. Share this clip and anything else that's pertinent on whatever Facebook groups you're on. The other day, someone was sharing our Genesis stuff, which is really, really nice. We appreciate that. So, and all links, just check out the links in the description. I appreciate you guys. Have a really good Sunday, and we'll talk real soon. Take care. What's wrong with machinery?